Fallout New Vegas, and really Fallout in general, is a game that never truly stops giving. Though there's a lot that's already been said about the series throughout the years, there's still so much more that can be discussed, dissected, and debated. A good example of such a subject that has endlessly led to mass debate across the Fallout community is something that I covered a little over a year ago now, being which of the 4 main factions featured in Fallout New Vegas would be the best option to take control of the Mojave wasteland and all that comes with it, including the vast amounts of wealth to be found on the New Vegas Strip, as well as other invaluable resources such as the power from Hoover Dam. Though Fallout New Vegas is soon to hit its 15th birthday, debate regarding this subject in particular has never once slowed down, and everyone has something to say about who could accomplish the daunting task of taking the Mojave from the sorry, worn-torn, poverty-stricken wasteland it is in its current form, and turning it into a properly governed, functioning society for all who reside underneath their banner. Over the course of a decade, this discussion has spanned several articles, countless forum posts, and many YouTube videos, with the one I uploaded last year and that you can watch here currently sitting at over 500,000 views as of time of recording, and alongside another video I made covering the story of the glow location from Fallout 1, took this channel to new places I previously thought I could never reach, and for that I'd like to thank you, my viewers, for making that possible. Thank you. With that being said, however, as human beings, our opinions tend to or should change with time or as new information is presented to us. So in the time after my original video covering this topic, has my opinion changed? Who is now the best faction for the Mojave? I'll start off by saying that because I think this was likely the most agreeable portion of my last video, then my opinion on Yes Man or the independent ending hasn't really changed much, if at all. In my original video, I had Yes Man in last place not because I thought he was the worst of the 4 choices, but rather due to how much of an anomaly he is in comparison to the others. Much of the Yes Man or independent questline essentially mirrors the gameplay of the house ending, with the biggest difference being that we the player are allowed to make the grand decisions regarding the smaller groups we like to keep around or not, in accordance to how useful they are to our plans for Vegas. This makes it fairly difficult to properly assess this ending on an entirely objective level, considering that a large portion of it is up to personal choice and varies per player. There are a few things about the independent ending, however, that are definitively canonical and that I take issue with. For one, Courier 6 with the aid of Yes Man may now have the proper resources to take over and rule New Vegas, but there's nothing to suggest that they have the capacity or proper experience to run not only a nation in its current form, but one that intends to grow far beyond the state that it exists in now as well. For example, people like President Kimball have climbed the political ladder of the NCR using his prior military experience, alongside his perception among Californians as a veritable war hero, in order to take swift and fierce action against those who would dare to stand against the might of the Republic. And although a vast majority of those on the outside looking in disagree with his methods or the structure of his government, Caesar has used his accumulated knowledge of the tribes he bore witness to along his path as a follower of the apocalypse, as well as the knowledge he gained through his research of the Roman Empire, to build an empire of his own and rule it with an unshakable iron fist. Regardless of what you may think of either of these two figures, the experience and wisdom they and other people in their position possess is crucial to properly running a nation, an experience and wisdom that the Courier themselves does not provably possess. Some point to how Ulysses declares that the Courier built the divide, but this is more so symbolic and referring to the fact that the Courier's actions, delivering the package from Navarro, eventually led to the creation of what the divide is today, and not that the Courier has a deep understanding or experience in nation building. So not only is the Courier's grip on New Vegas fragile to say the least, but the methods of attaining that position are as well. Yes Man was a Securitron from the Strip that was then captured and reprogrammed by Benny with the help of Emily Ordle, and rather than keeping the peace on the Strip and following Mr. House's orders to a T, Yes Man is now programmed to do whatever anyone may tell him without exception. The Courier discovers this when stumbling upon Yes Man and Benny's suite, then going on to turn Yes Man into a tool for their plans to emancipate New Vegas from the warring factions entirely, with Yes Man following you every step of the way as an obedient right hand, at least for the time being. While Yes Man does currently follow the Courier's orders without question, there are moments throughout the independent questline where he expresses more autonomy than the Courier may have initially realized, most prominently at the conclusion of the Second Battle of Hoover Dam, where he imparts upon the Courier that he intends to tinker with his own programming.
You did a super job wrapping things up, and I'm not just saying that because I have to. I didn't want to make a big deal about this until after we won, but, well, I found some code snippets in one of Mr. House's databanks that will let me, reprogram my personality to be a little more assertive, basically. So that's what I'm going to be doing, and it's going to take me a while, so it'll seem like I'm offline. But don't worry, everything will be okay. I've updated the Securitron's targeting parameters, so they know what to do. Vegas will be protected. So that's where I'll be, off making a few changes, and I guess I'll see you around.
Artificial intelligence running amok and overthrowing human capabilities is a trope the Fallout series is no stranger to, as well as something we in real life fear and are faced with constant reminders of every single day. So I'm sure I don't need to explain why Yes Man reprogramming himself of his own volition is an unnerving thought. When I asserted this in my last video, many were quick to comment saying that Yes Man commencing his own reprogramming to be more assertive simply meant that he was altering himself so that the Courier is the only one who could give him commands, and not just anyone else who walks in on him the same way the Courier did initially. While this is a fine explanation for this specific instance of dialogue, I feel many missed the entire picture of the argument I was attempting to present. Yes Man is reprogramming himself now to be more assertive for the Courier, but how long before he simply decides to reprogram himself again, as he's already demonstrated here that he's capable of and willing to do. And there is no way of truly knowing that every time he reprograms himself, it will be for the Courier or in line with what the Courier plans for Vegas, as Yes Man has also demonstrated that he can still disagree with the Courier on certain matters within their plans and heavily suggests that they instead fulfill his own desires.
Really? Well, that's a surprise. They'll really want to blow me up. But maybe dumb machines like me ought to get blown up and scrapped for salvage. Who knows? Not me. Then consider them ignored. If they end up firing their howitzers at us, we'll ignore that too. Until it goes away.
And while Yes Man, just as House before him, is functionally immortal, there is also a minute chance that he could become inoperable or go offline, as he says he'll appear to be while commencing his reprogramming permanently, rendering all the Courier's control over Vegas completely void. Though the sheer ambiguity regarding the longevity of Yes Man's servitude or the Courier's lack of experience in nation building are both cause for concern in my mind, there is also the issue of, is an independent New Vegas free from the laws of Mr. House or the NCR something that's even desirable in the first place? Many throughout the Mojave take issue with the rules and law of the New California Republic or Mr. House, but it is because of them that New Vegas is as stable as it is even in its current form, where a war between the NCR and Caesar's Legion that will fundamentally change the Mojave is right around the corner. This is apparent in some of the endgame slides as well, where people like Arcade, who initially believed in an independent New Vegas, now face the hard truth that it wasn't all he envisioned it would be, or in some cases even worse than it was before.
Though independence for New Vegas was not all he hoped it could be, Arcade used his enclave knowledge and technology to keep order wherever he could.
After the Courier ensured New Vegas remained free, the followers found that independent Vegas was even more unstable and violent than before. Old Mormon Fort became excessively burdened by the influx of patients, struggling to provide even the most basic of services.
Even if you somehow believe that the Courier can make all the right decisions for New Vegas through their inexperience, longevity is still an issue, as the Courier will inevitably die one day, and all that comes with Yes Man that I mentioned earlier still remains. An independent New Vegas only aids New Vegas, which, while it is important, ignores the entire Mojave region surrounding it with other people and problems of their own, arguably making things more difficult for them than prior to the emancipation of New Vegas. The more and more the cracks begin to form, the less and less desirable an independent New Vegas looks to me, and I do believe that Courier 6 and Yes Man cannot truly help the Mojave. Caesar's Legion continues to be an interesting faction, and if not interesting, then most certainly a divisive one, as I received a fair share of disagreements on my last video telling me I misinterpreted Caesar and his philosophy for why he's going to war with the NCR, or that I didn't really give them the credit they deserved in certain areas, which is somewhat true. Similarly to Yes Man, my opinion of Caesar's Legion hasn't changed much since my last video, but I'd like to see if I can word my arguments differently to hopefully make them a little more agreeable to those of you watching today. My biggest issues with Caesar's Legion are in regard to its sustainability, and this is demonstrated to be a recurring problem throughout the main quest. The Legion is known for their savagery that they inflict upon any whom they deem to be an unsavory stain upon the face of the common good, and while it's easy to write off their atrocities as horrific acts of evil, their barbaric works have indeed brought peace and prosperity to the territory that currently exists under the rule of the Bull today, including all of New Mexico and Arizona, with a good portion of Utah and Colorado as well. We learned from wanderers like Ulysses and Narwhal that places like Arizona were overrun by raiders, with towns barely left standing due to the limited trade and resources that came as a result of the harsh surrounding conditions. Caesar's Legion then came in bringing civilization to these hostile lands and leaving them in much better shape than when they found them, not just creating functional societies, but ones that were presumably content with living under the leadership of Caesar's Legion as a result as well.
Walked the east too, before the bull came. Then, much like the Mojave before the bear, tribes, towns, clutching to life. Bull did a better job.
But the Mojave, as Caesar's legion finds it in 2277, is not at all in a similar condition to those other desolate states they'd pacified before, as the NCR had already been occupying the area for some years before their first encounter at Hoover Dam. However, even after their crushing defeat at the hands of the NCR, Caesar remains at his post across the river. But why? We have to ask a few important questions as our discussion of the Legion, or really any faction, proceeds, and as it pertains to their occupation of the Mojave. Why is Caesar's legion so invested in occupying the Mojave? How does the rule of Caesar affect the region? And what does Caesar's legion plan to do after their victory? For what the legion's motives for residing in the Mojave could possibly be, it's fairly clear that it has nothing to do with bringing civilization or peace to the area, and has everything to do with Caesar's dreams of transforming his legion from the moderate yet still respectably sized nation it is in its current form into a true empire to rival and crush the likes of even the new California Republic.
My conquest of the Mojave will be a glorious triumph, marking the transition of the Legion from a basically nomadic tribe to a genuine empire. We have cities of our own, but nothing compared to Vegas. Finally, my Legion will have its Rome. Just as my namesake campaigned in Gaul before he crossed the Rubicon, so have I campaigned and will cross the Colorado.
Given as to how he was born a citizen of the NCR, it would make sense that he would be keenly aware of and resent the nation's corruption or inefficiencies, as the NCR's failure to protect its citizens presumably led to his father's death at the time Caesar was just 2 years of age. And now that the man has a nation of his own embodying the ideals and philosophies that he believes can carry mankind through the tribulations of the post-apocalypse, he desires to completely eradicate his former home along with the identity and philosophies that reside within it to prove that he is indeed correct in his methods.
The NCR is a loose conglomerate of individuals looking out for themselves. It's lost virtue. No one cares about the collective, the greater good. Greed runs rampant. The government is corrupt, accepting bribes from Brahmin barons and landowners to the detriment of citizens. As a young man, I was taught to venerate President Tandy of Shady Sands, the founding mother of the new California Republic. Did you know her presidency lasted 52 years? And that her father, Aradesh, was the Republic's first president? Does that sound like a democracy to you? Or a hereditary dictatorship? So things ran smoothly, more or less. And as soon as she was gone, as soon as there really could be democracy, what happened then? Ever since losing its queen, the NCR has been weaker, more diffuse. Democracy has been its weakness, not its strength. The NCR has all the problems of the ancient Roman Republic: extreme bureaucracy, corruption, extensive senatorial infighting. Just as with the ancient Republic, it is natural that a military force should conquer and transform the NCR into a military dictatorship. Thesis and antithesis. The Colorado River is my Rubicon. The NCR Council will be eradicated. But the new synthesis will change the Legion as well. From a basically nomadic army to a standing military force that protects its citizens and the power of its dictator.
And while this may make Caesar's legion seem unworthy to take control of the Mojave for some, I'm going to say something that might surprise a decent bit of you who may have watched my previous video now. That being that I don't necessarily take issue with this as the motivation of Caesar's legion and why they choose to remain in the area. Let's say hypothetically that Caesar really wanted to stick it to the NCR and decides to do so by turning the Mojave into something even better than the Republic ever could have. The inherently ego-driven motivations prevail, but everyday Mojave citizens are still able to reap the inadvertent benefits from the Legion perhaps building the area up to forge a decent commerce between the Mojave and their eastern territories, in order to truly conquer the Republic's philosophies alongside strengthening his army in the process. However, with that being said, we should look back at our other two questions. How does the rule of Caesar's legion affect the region today, and what are their plans after a potential victory? After their loss to the NCR, the Legion has been performing any atrocity they could concoct to terrorize the new California Republic, such as maiming and crucifying troops, enslaving their rangers, or putting entire towns within a stone's throw of NCR outposts to the torch. And while this may seem clever on paper as it crushes the enemy's spirits and their willingness to fight, the trauma these injustices create just as easily spill over into into the hearts of everyday Mojave citizens, as the NCR has already done a bit to aid the region, and some people do like the NCR as a result, meaning that Caesar's Legion committing the crimes it does against the NCR won't inspire any love for Caesar among the many faces that make up the Mojave, this being apparent in the way that warm thoughts and positive affirmations in regards to the Legion outside of those already directly affiliated with the faction in some capacity are few and far between. These acts perpetrated by the Legion not only increases their infamy among their opponents in battle, but also with citizens as well, citizens who may flee Legion territory or someday seek to revolt against the Empire, and we see this very reality present in the game, where a former member of Caesar's Fermentari, Ulysses, whose old tribe was decimated and absorbed by the Legion, now desires to destroy both the New California Republic and Caesar's Legion as well.
These governments of the two-headed bear, the Legion, they carry old world ideas into an age that no longer needs them, where they cannot live. I'll turn the long 15 into miles of fire. Cut off the Mojave, NCR will fall back, lose Hoover Dam, and leave their throats exposed to the Legion. Not all the East will burn. The Legion does not need to be destroyed, only contained within new borders.
This presents a problem, as although a nation's citizens don't necessarily have to love their nation or its leader to directly serve under it, they hold no incentive to stay within its borders or attempt to aid its growth into something even more prosperous as time goes on, meaning that the Legion may be conquering or utilizing manpower to hold this territory in vain. While it is once again true that the Legion has pacified and successfully held quite a bit of territory to the east, the Mojave is not in as bleak as a position as those eastern territories were, and therefore the complete necessity of the Legion's barbarism is dubious at best. But this answers how the rule of Caesar's Legion affects the Mojave currently, yet still looking at the progress Caesar's Legion is aiming for after potential victory at Hoover Dam once again points back to his motivations, as it's made more than apparent that after throwing the NCR out of the region, Caesar doesn't exactly plan to simply hold his newly acquired territory and build it to stand alongside their lands to the east with time, instead planning to push even further westward and march onto California soil.
The time is fast approaching when my Legion will assault the Great Dam and invade the West. With Lanius to drive the Legion forward, the dam will be taken. It will be our bridgehead across the Colorado.
With their commander gone, the NCR will pull out of this region, allowing our conquest to continue westward unopposed for a time. Perhaps in time I will be granted the honor of conquering the land known as California, but for now we rest.
At this point, it doesn't seem as if the Legion is all that invested in the stability or growth of the region, and is more so interested in tearing down the NCR to the very borders of their homeland. But even assuming that Caesar's Legion is indeed successful at the end of the Second Battle of Hoover Dam, we then have to ask ourselves another question. How long can the Legion actually last in its current form? It's no secret that despite their criticisms of the NCR, the Legion is equally as prone to infighting themselves. Vulpes and Kulta has played a major role in the Legion's atrocities against the NCR. Vulpes is clever and conniving, with Caesar using these characteristics in order to make his army even stronger as they further break the spirit of the NCR's forces. One of Vulpes' plots includes conspiring with the Emeritus to release chlorine gas onto the Strip and kill dozens or even hundreds of innocent people for what seems to be no discernible reason. This plot implied to be something Caesar condones when imparting upon the Courier that he's supplying the Emeritus with bribes to fund their betrayal. On the other end of the spectrum, Legate Lanius looks down upon both Vulpes and this scheme, believing that his trademark toolkit of trickery and deception have no place within the ranks of the Legion.
A plan by Vulpes. Treachery is a weapon that one should never rely on. I can only hope that the Omertas died when their treachery was exposed. To have the plan succeed only would have sullied the Legion. It does not matter. Victory shall be ours. It shall be swift, and it will be honest. Purchased with blood.
While it would seem that these two as high-ranking members of Caesar's army with directly opposing philosophies regarding war would inevitably butt heads, Caesar has remained a strong force keeping his men in line, acting according to his will. But there is one major problem. Over the course of the main quest, we discover that Caesar is stricken with sickness in the form of a brain tumor, guaranteeing his death if continuing to go untreated. If this does occur, Lanius takes his place at the head of the Legion, which causes Vulpes and Kulta to express immediate concern.
This is a moment I'd hoped would not come for many years. Caesar's death puts the legate Lanius in command now. Lanius served Caesar well as his greatest battlefield commander. With Lanius at the head of the Legion, however, I doubt he'll have much use for my services. He prefers direct methods.
While I don't believe Lanius is only a meathead warrior completely incapable of leading the Legion, as when the Courier comes face to face with him at the fort, he shows himself to be quite a different person than either the rumors surrounding him or Caesar would lead you to believe, with the official Prima game guide taking a step further to state that Lanius is a man skilled in the arts of both battle and conversation, but as I detailed with the Courier in my previous section, I believe that it also takes wisdom and experience to run and develop a nation. Lanius does demonstrate that he indeed possesses a mind for not only battle, but strategy alongside it, yet Caesar possesses the wisdom and experience necessary to take his empire to greatness, and this is further expanded upon in some endings of the game, where we learn that not only do some unfortunate circumstances befall the Legion after Caesar's death, but organizations like the NCR Rangers similarly rely on the wisdom of their leaders as well.
After the death of Chief Hanlon, the power of NCR's Rangers was broken for years. Their organization, so reliant on the wisdom and guidance of its elder members, became a shadow of what it once was to people across the wasteland.
If Caesar survives the events of the game,
merciless in their assault on the NCR, the remnants struck fear into the hearts of even the centurions at Hoover Dam. Well aware of the full extent of their power, Caesar commanded his troops to not pursue them.
If Caesar dies,
merciless in their assault on the NCR, the remnants struck fear into the hearts of even the centurions at Hoover Dam. Caesar's heirs aggressively pursued the remnants into Arizona, losing hundreds of legionaries in the process, and gaining nothing in return.
While I don't believe that Caesar's untimely demise will result in the immediate collapse of the Legion, the fact that it is a matter of when and not if makes it difficult to have faith in the Legion's long-term stability, and I can only imagine the rivalries within the Legion coming to a head as what remains of their forces cross the Colorado, or not long after they lay their gaze upon the sea beating against the shore of California. However, this returns us to something that we must address and to a point that I made in my original video. That being that regardless of who is leading Caesar's Legion at the time, attempting to take California is a less than stellar idea. The NCR has been a formidable force in Nevada, even with the restrictions placed on the number of troops President Kimball was allotted to send into the region, and it would be foolish to attempt to assert that the Legion hasn't struggled against even this weaker NCR presence in the Mojave, meaning that it only becomes increasingly difficult and the bodies of their own men only pile higher and higher the further they march west to be swallowed whole by a republic that is now more fortified, with more troops and more support back home than the Legion could ever be ready for. One could argue that the Legion doesn't have to begin their move towards the west straight away, and it may instead opt to take time building their resources and gathering more troops, which is more than plausible, but the problem arises when attempting to piece together how soon that could take. I made a point in my original video that I now disagree with based on this statement from Legate Lanius.
Long ago, when taking Denver, I had to face such a challenge. Many died over many years to claim the city as ours. It was the lines of food and water that nearly broke the Legion's strength, and the lack of tribals near that cursed city. When I felt in that struggle, I felt as I saw the map of the West. The West is a trap. The bear has already been caught in it, and it is dying.
I use this statement to assert that the Legion will not gain any new troops into their ranks from conquering the Mojave, as at the time I believed that the Legion would only take new soldiers from conquered tribals, a group that the Mojave possesses a near complete lack of. However, after digging a bit deeper, it occurred to me that not only will the Legion be taking several slaves from their conquest of the Mojave, but these slaves will either be bred with one another or Legion officers to then birth new soldiers into the Legion. The only issue still remaining, however, is the time that would be needed to properly train these soldiers and prepare them for war against the West. Although Mr. House believes that an NCR loss at Hoover Dam will result in the end of President Kimball's political career, it is implied by General Oliver that despite their loss, the Republic will return to reclaim the dam, and if true, it means the Legion is regathering their strength and building their forces on borrowed time. The simple solution on paper would appear to be pulling more Legion soldiers from the east for their invasion of the west, but this weakens their grip on their eastern territories alongside leading to the exact issue the NCR finds themselves in right now: overextension. I think it's been made fairly clear that Caesar's Legion has little to no interest in building the Mojave into something as equally as stable as their eastern territories, and Caesar is more infatuated in the status symbol that comes with being ruler of the Strip, as well as how that would tear the NCR down by extension, but even that isn't enough, and he desires to go and meet the Republic on its home territory to what appears to be no end.
Kimball, Kaiser, House. You'd think that our world was that wall, cutting the Colorado. If I'd never laid eyes on it, never spoke of it, but once found, it was all Caesar could see. That, and the flag beyond it, another symbol, big enough to challenge him.
Given these characteristics, I believe it's still fair to say that the Legion is therefore a poor choice for the future of the Mojave. It is possible that citizens of the Legion could inadvertently benefit from the actions of Caesar's Legion, but it would have to be just that, inadvertent. As the Legion has demonstrated their interest in proving their ideology is in fact correct by reshaping the Mojave to be more like their eastern territories, to be tenuous at best, and little else resides within Caesar's mind that isn't the notion of destroying the NCR. Which leads us to discuss that very republic now. I'll be the first to admit that I took it a bit far with some of my arguments in regards to the new California Republic, though a few of those same sentiments still remain. In my original video, I sought to dismantle this idea that's commonly thrown around throughout the community even to this day, that the NCR is just a perfect faction sitting there waiting for the Courier to do the right thing and aid the Republic in their pursuit of fully realizing their grip on the Mojave. I still get comments on my original video to this day declaring that this debate is a massive stomp in the NCR's favor, and I'm always left asking myself why. It's quite apparent that the new California Republic aims to replicate the government and culture of pre-war America, bringing alongside it a civilization with democracy as well as the admitted freedoms that come with it, but we should ask ourselves similar questions as we did for Caesar's Legion, like why the NCR came to the Mojave in the first place. What does the Republic gain from its campaign onto torrid Mojave soil? This is where you'll notice a recurring pattern within the government and military of the NCR, that being its repeated displays of disunion. As we learn in the intro of the game, NCR officials heard tales of the bright neon lights of Vegas alongside the Great Wall that splits the Colorado River providing its power, and became tantalized with the prospects of new territory, wealth, and expansion of their power. But some of the NCR troops, on the other hand, believe they are in the area for very different and rather benevolent reasons. They perceive the purpose of their occupation of the Mojave is to bring order by ridding everyday citizens of threats such as the drug-crazed fiends or the enslaving rapists of Caesar's Legion. While this doesn't present an immediate issue as both could realistically be achieved, this disconnect between different portions of the NCR or their goals lead to a host of much more severe dilemmas throughout the NCR's government. One of these being the NCR's lack of proper communication and efficiency present in most of their endeavors. Another being the extreme bureaucracy that turns simple solutions or rulings into long grueling processes that span over the course of many years, and these processes unfortunately have to go through the hands of those without the best of intentions, putting themselves and their own desires for glory or riches above what is the best for the NCR as well as its citizens. It is possible for the new California Republic to do good, as we learned that their engineers have been attempting to restore Hoover Dam to working condition, and they've also repaired the pipe network of Lake Mead, allowing easier access to fresh drinking water for Mojave citizens. This is undeniable, but they have their own fair share of bad to go along with it, most notably how many throughout the Mojave resent the Republic for simply waltzing over onto their land and attempting to claim it regardless of whether they desire to be annexed by the NCR or not. These people end up forced out of their homes and off of their land because the overwhelming might of the Republic is too much for them to stand against. The Republic knows this and uses it to their advantage to take whatever they want when they want it.
Don't get me started, stranger. We don't take kindly to either of them. We fought hard for our home, and we're here to stay. The Legion knows nothing of working the land. Those folks would rather pillage, burn, and steal like mad beasts. That ain't honest living. The NCR's no better. They won't burn your home and rape your daughter, sure, but they'll steal your wealth all the same, when you ain't looking.
Looks like I forgot to lock the doors again. If you're with the NCR, get out. This place is mine, and I'm not leaving. The NCR makes a habit out of wrecking homes. I came out here to get away from them. Didn't work out so well. Next thing I know, I'm squatting in their land. Never mind that I already been living here for years.
Some would deem this to be immoral or even outright diabolical behavior, and while I can't necessarily say that I disagree, I have to take a similar stance as I did with the Legion earlier to say that this shouldn't necessarily dissuade one from siding with the NCR in the grand scheme of things, that the Republic can genuinely bring peace, order, or freedom to the Mojave. Peace and order are a given considering some of the things we've already gone over and some of the quests we're given by or in relation to the NCR, such as cleaning up the fiends from the area as well as easing tensions between groups like the NCR and the Kings, but freedom is another matter entirely. Many look at the other options like Mr. House or Caesar's Legion and immediately believe that the NCR is the most free simply because its citizens have some sort of hand in their government, but this freedom is only allotted to people within the NCR's borders that can somehow manage to pay for the NCR's heavy taxes to live under their ruling. And the endgame slides, we do learn that some towns within the Mojave managed to remain independent of the New California Republic, but it's implied to be a bit of a challenge doing so. And even after the NCR has managed to make peace with organizations like the Kings and Freeside, they still repeatedly and maybe even aggressively attempt to petition them into joining the Republic, which the Kings vehemently refuse. I do have to admit that the Republic, even if through unforgiving imperialism, can make the Mojave as we find it even better if they are able to win the Second Battle of Hoover Dam, considering that it's the constant threat of Caesar's Legion that holds them back in some respects. However, there are other issues that still require our attention regarding the longevity of this arrangement. Spoilers for the Fallout television show any further past this point in the NCR section of this video. If you'd like to continue on instead into the house portion, follow the timestamp on screen as well as in the description below. You have been warned. While before the future of any of these factions could only be theorized about, the recently released Fallout television show has given us quite a bit of information regarding the fate of the New California Republic after the Second Battle of Hoover Dam, where its capital of Shady Sands, containing a sizable portion of its citizens, politicians, and soldiers, was unfortunately bombed and destroyed by one Hank McClain, a man seeking to destroy the factions that have risen to make the surface livable again in order to maintain the power of Vault-Tec and its monopoly on safety in the post-apocalypse. As a result, the once thriving and promising nation that was the New California Republic is rendered a shadow of its former glory, without its capital and all that was held within it. What remains of the Republic now is little and scattered, or absorbed by other factions like the Brotherhood of Steel. This reality now makes it difficult to hold a certain amount of faith in the Republic and the longevity of any arrangement they may come to in regards to their dealings in the Mojave as well. As although one could argue that the destruction of Shady Sands in the west doesn't instantly constitute their collapse in the east, I doubt many NCR soldiers would desire to continue maintaining their presence in the Mojave after the destruction of their home, especially when taking into consideration that much of the NCR's leadership that would elect them to do so resided in Shady Sands as well. I have to admit that it's unfortunate that we only have this degree of insight on the NCR specifically when it comes to making our decision, as while I do once again believe the NCR may be capable of bringing peace and prosperity to the region despite its flaws, its fate that we're privy to only ensures the collapse of the Mojave in the process, something that we are indeed shown in one of the final scenes within the show. We don't know exactly what happened or how the NCR's occupancy in the Mojave may have concluded, but I plan to talk more about it in a video I will be releasing sometime in the near future, hypothesizing about what could possibly be the canonical ending to Fallout New Vegas. To still present some sort of conclusion here, the New California Republic is intrinsically divided, and the crooked individuals who hold seats in the NCR Senate or figures within its military such as General Oliver, who slights Chief Hanlon due to his jealousy, prevent the NCR from becoming the nation it truly should be, and there is also blame to lay at the feet of its slow, inefficient bureaucratic democracy as well. Despite these flaws in the destruction of Shady Sands, I believe the Republic could potentially make the Mojave safer and prosperous for everyday citizens if they are able to overcome their inefficiency and their imperialist ways. Moving on now to discuss House, some took issue with my conclusion that Mr. House was the best faction for a number of different reasons. I firmly believe that House was the best option out of his opposition in both the New California Republic and Caesar's Legion, as he is the only faction leader promising the growth of not only Vegas and their individual empire, but the Mojave and humanity as a whole.
New Vegas is more than a city. It's the remedy to mankind's derailment. The city's economy is a blast furnace in which can be forged the steel of a new rail line running straight to a new horizon. What is the NCR? A society of people desperate to experience comfort, ease, luxury. A society of customers. That's how I harness the NCR to my endeavor. Their occupation has been the engine of my growing economy. With all that money pouring in, give me 20 years and I'll reignite the high technology development sectors. 50 years and I'll have people in orbit. 100 years and my colony ships will be heading for the stars to search for planets unpolluted by the wrath and folly of a bygone generation.
It's easy to say that House is simply playing himself up to the Courier, considering they're the only person who could aid him in his current situation, but even after he's removed from his chamber, a veritable death sentence that ensures his plans could no longer be fulfilled, his thoughts are of man, as well as the repercussions his own demise could have on humanity, given how no other prominent faction is viewing the current situation as broadly as he.
Fool! To let personalities derail future of mankind. Stupid! Slavery! The future of mankind? What have you done?
And if we instead opt to destroy his Securitrons rather than upgrade them,
Do you have the slightest idea of what you've done? Of what you've destroyed? You've doomed Vegas to be ruled by corrupt bureaucrats or fanatical savages. Single-handedly, you've brought mankind's best hopes of forward progress crashing down. No punishment would be too severe.
While it's fair to possess some skepticism regarding the affirmations he provides the Courier within their first meeting, he clearly laments the fate of all of humanity after the destruction of his army, in his last moments, or even from beyond the grave in his obituary, and is therefore not making up a character or a lie. Another benefit to House is that he represents the prospect of something relatively new. It's no secret that the New California Republic is the equivalent of the United States government in the modern day, and while what the United States was could provide some sort of security and prosperity in the desolate, lawless wastes, I think it's self-explanatory as to why replicating a government that directly participated in the near extinction of the human race wouldn't be the brightest idea for developing humanity in the post-apocalypse. Caesar's Legion, on the other hand, has managed to pacify certain territories to the east, but their dictatorial works are barbaric and horrific, with solutions as severe as theirs only becoming necessary in last resort dire circumstances and desperate times of need, which the Mojave mostly isn't in currently. While House does refer to himself as an autocrat, he also directly states that he has no interest in ruling over people in the ways one would expect someone in such a position to do.
I prefer the term autocrat. I would rule as a chief executive. I would not answer to a board of directors or any other entity. I have no interest in abusing others, just as I have no interest in legislating or otherwise dictating what people do in their private time. Nor have I any interest in being worshipped as some kind of machine god messiah. I am impervious to such corrupting ambitions. But autocracy? Firm control in the hands of a technological and economic visionary? Yes. That Vegas shall have.
The only other available refutation at this point would be to claim that House is only motivated in rebuilding society solely so that it may serve as a grand monument to his legacy. But I maintain my same position as with the other factions prior, being that I'm not too concerned with the motivations of the faction leaders so long as their aims benefit the Mojave and shape it into a better place along the way. Another component of House that makes him more so desirable to me is that unlike other groups such as Caesar's Legion, House is more than happy to coexist with other factions like the Boomers, the Kings, or even the New California Republic.
Why would I want to go to war against the NCR? They're my best customers. The salient issue is that they will go to war with me, if given the chance. If their leaders weren't scheming to steal Vegas out from under me, I'd have no troubles with the NCR at all.
I'm sure a good portion of you already disagree with this notion, but using this criteria of groups that are plotting against or to steal his property from him, let's look at situations where some may argue that this is not the case. Most prevalent of which, in something I touched on in my original video, was the Brotherhood of Steel. I received plenty of comments claiming that I was unfairly critical of the NCR for wiping out the Brotherhood, yet did not hold House to the same standard, which is not the case. My issue with the NCR in this instance was that a diplomatic solution was not considered by Colonel Moore before the immediate decision of sending in the Courier to murder every single one of their members. We do find out when working with the Brotherhood that a diplomatic solution is possible, and despite Colonel Moore's wishes, we can instead make the Brotherhood allies of the NCR, a resolution with which she is displeased and bitterly mocks the idea of a peaceful cooperation.
And you believed them? Do you have any idea how long we've been fighting those bastards? Ugh, Crocker will have a field day with this. He'll want to establish diplomatic relations with them, for Pete's sake.
While one may attempt to argue that Colonel Moore is only a single acting entity within the military of the NCR, she goes on to state that there are people in positions of power above her that only care about results, and because her decisions yield results, they are pleased with and directly approve of her actions, meaning that this is a greater problem within the NCR. Diplomatically coming to a conclusion between the Brotherhood and the NCR is possible, whereas it is not for Mr. House. This is because the Brotherhood is well known for confiscating any and all technology they deem to be too dangerous to be in the hands of anyone other than themselves. Given that House has not only created an army of Securitrons that can each rival even Caesar's Praetorian Guard, but has also managed to extend his lifespan indefinitely through the use of technology, it's only a matter of time before the Brotherhood attempts to infiltrate the Strip and do something drastic, and we even overhear idle dialogue confirming that they are indeed a threat to Mr. House.
Our instruments show some impressive power fluctuations coming from across the river. What's going on over there?
The reports say Mr. House's robots are now using tech we've never heard of. We need to send a team up there soon.
In House's case, the Brotherhood is not simply a group that opposes him or his ideals, but are instead a group that is fundamentally against his very existence, making it so that the two factions fundamentally cannot coexist, and therefore I believe it is more than acceptable that if the Brotherhood were to attack House, that he defends himself and his territory in response. The Kings are another group that may come to mind as well, but House only elects to attack the Kings if they continue to hold ties with the NCR after his victory at the Second Battle of Hoover Dam, at which point the Republic has been ordered to withdraw, considering that they've already demonstrated they're a danger to both House since they plot to murder him, as well as his territory, as they've taken the land from so many before. If it isn't clear enough to you already, given the NCR's actions against House, the Kings continuing to work with the NCR within House's borders even after their order to withdraw effectively warrants an act of treason. There are still endings where House and the Kings can coexist, however, so I don't think that this is that big of an issue. House being able to coexist with the other factions also adds credence to his earlier claims about not ruling in the same vein as a ruthless dictator, and those who are not in favor of House aren't forced to live within his jurisdiction. Another key detail about House that I feel is worth mentioning is his immortality. I already discussed the issues with Caesar's passing in my Legion section, as well as in other videos on my channel, like my video on the Legate that you can watch here, but we are also told that the NCR has similarly been in somewhat of a rocky place ever since President Tandy's unfortunate passing. House, on the other hand, has attained functional immortality and will proceed with his plans regarding Vegas for the foreseeable future. In my previous video, I said that although House has achieved this, he should try to find a suitable successor just to have an answer for all possibilities. It slipped my mind, however, that we received confirmation that he is actually trying to do this within the very game, when he laments that Benny, someone who he had his eye on to fill this position, betrays him.
Benny has led the chairman ever since I recruited his tribe 7 years ago. Until his recent misbehavior, I'd planned to make him my protege. Maybe if I'd begun grooming him sooner, none of this would have happened. Obviously, I miscalculated his drive for supremacy. But in any case, you've come along. A more than suitable replacement.
Every single issue we've had with the other factions, House has addressed in some way for the better. Caesar's death and the NCR struggling to find its next suitable leader is countered by the fact that House has achieved veritable immortality and will never die. He is also vastly more intelligent than any member of either Caesar's Legion or the NCR, as he has achieved said immortality while Caesar's Legion forbids the use of medicine and is, in his own words, largely ignorant of medical science. But in comparison to the NCR's efforts, he easily restores Hoover Dam to new heights after the second battle in a way that once again strong-arms General Oliver into an agreement. House is also just as free and non-discriminatory as the NCR without its heavy taxes that plagues everyday citizens or the people they forcibly annex, and while he is an autocrat, he does not meddle in the private affairs of his citizens like the NCR, or especially Caesar's Legion, who forbids things like chems or alcohol. House's armies are also not human, and therefore not subject to the petty human rivalries or disunion that supersede the common good among the governments and soldiers in both the NCR and the Legion. House not only directly addresses several concerns within the other factions, but he is also thinking much broader than they are and hopes to rebuild civilization. The only other issues people really take with House are questioning his claim to Vegas, which is something that Benny also does.
Mr. House hides Vegas under his skirt when the bombs fall 1,000 years ago, so it belongs to him? Forever? You buy that? Baby, every boss has a line to explain why he's special. Why everyone's gotta do what he says. You're just figuring that out? Vegas gotta swing, baby. Gotta have pizzazz, respect where due, but that old man is square to the core.
The issue with this is that House himself doesn't believe this, nor does he cite this as the reason why he would be the best choice for the Mojave today.
Years ago, when I detected NCR scouts roaming the Mojave, I could tell from their uniforms that these were no mere tribesmen. I knew it was only a matter of time before an army appeared to take control of the dam. And I knew my Securitrons wouldn't be enough to oppose them. And so I recruited the 3 families. Vegas belongs to me because I mustered enough strength to bring the NCR to the bargaining table.
House first defending Las Vegas from the bombs is a solid enough point on its own, but it's the fact that House was the only one capable of creating a force to keep invaders like the NCR away that also provides him the initiative to forge not only a prosperous Mojave, but a prosperous future for all of mankind. Addressing the second issue some have regarding House means that I have to spoil the Fallout television show. If you'd like to continue further into the House portion, follow the timestamp on screen as well as in the description below. You have been warned. In the 8th and final episode of the Fallout television show, it is revealed that Mr. House attends what appears to be some sort of an investors meeting for Vault-Tec. And in this meeting, a Vault-Tec representative admits that they intend to drop the bombs themselves to ensure the success of their vaults. Many have interpreted this to mean that Mr. House was somehow directly involved in the events of the Great War and caused the sorry state the human race exists in currently, but this is a major leap in logic. In this meeting, House not only questions the legitimacy of the vaults and what they're doing to prevent their inhabitants from infighting or eventually cannibalizing themselves, but when the others attending the meeting begin to concoct all sorts of bizarre and depraved ideas for vault experiments based on their own desires, he only says that the idea is interesting, likely referring to the prospect of shaping a new future for humanity based on the conditioning of a vault in his design, as that's directly what they were invited to the meeting to discuss. Not only this, but when said Vault-Tec representative imparts upon those at the meeting that they intend to drop the bomb themselves, House doesn't condone or even reply to this declaration. In fact, no one present at this meeting does. So the idea that House somehow had a hand in or was responsible for the Great War is laughably unprovable, to say the least. Mr. House not only addresses the issues present within the other factions, but also improves upon them with his aims that go beyond one city and potentially even one region or government, and the issues that people have with House are more often than not subjective and addressed within the very game by the man himself. While this is obviously my opinion as well, I formed it based on what we are given within the text of the game, as opposed to personal sentiments such as, I believe House is lying, or how could I ever trust House when he was a CEO before the war? While I don't wear rose-tinted glasses and believe that House is some altruistic do-gooder with only the best of intentions for everyone, whatever his ambitions may be still present the best option for those living in the Mojave without the uncertain chaos of New Vegas' independence, the tyranny of Caesar's Legion, or the conniving imperialism of the NCR. I do believe the NCR has more merit than I let on in my original video, but still much less than the community seems to freely grant them. Aside from this, my opinion largely has not changed, and I do still believe Mr. House is currently the best option for the Mojave. With that being said, however, I'm going to go ahead and bring this video to an end. Despite my conclusion, I still feel that there may be more to learn within the second season of the Fallout show, and thus I may end up making even a third video if deemed necessary, but I still have a back catalog of other Fallout content for you to check out if you're interested, and I plan to make more content about Fallout as well as a variety of other topics in the future. So subscribe for free to be notified of what I might get up to in the future, such as when I upload or stream. As of the making of this video, we're encroaching on the 10,000 subscriber mark, and I'm excited to see where I can take my channel from here to further entertain you. Like the video to support both the channel and myself, as well as let me know that this is the type of content you want to see. Feel free to let me know what you think or if you believe there's something I missed in the comments below. Thank you all for watching, and have a blessed day.